What the Buddha Taught by Walpola Rahula. The Preface. All over the world today, there is a growing interest in Buddhism. Numerous societies and study groups have come into being, and scores of books have appeared on the teaching of the Buddha. It is to be regretted, however, that most of them have been written by those who are not really competent, or bring to their task misleading assumptions derived from other religions, which must misinterpret and misrepresent their subject. A professor of comparative religion, who recently wrote a book on Buddhism, did not even know that Ananda, the devoted attendant of the Buddha, was a bhikkhu, a monk, but thought he was a layman. The knowledge of Buddhism, propagated by books like these, can be left to the reader's imagination. Now, if you don't know a piece of information, can't you just, keep silent? Oh, I have to know what this guy was up to. And it's like, now leave that as a blank. That's why my dreams and all that is fill so many blanks, because I want scrupulous honesty in the spiritual endeavors. I make these trips, and some people would come back and write a whole book based on the little bit that's happened to me, or the research, just a couple pages of research, and write a whole grimoire or alternative scripture of some sort based on almost nothing. But that's not what we should do. It shouldn't be left to our imagination. I've tried in this little book to address myself, first of all, to the educated and intelligent general reader, uninstructed in the subject, who would like to know what the Buddha actually taught. For his benefit, I have aimed at giving briefly and as directly, as simply as possible, a faithful and accurate account of the actual words used by the Buddha, as they are to be found in the original Pali text of the Tipitaka, universally accepted by scholars as the earliest extant records of the teachings of the Buddha. The material used and the passages quoted here and taken directly from these originals. In a few places, I have referred to some later works too. I have borne in mind too that the reader who has already some knowledge of what the Buddha taught and would like to go further with his studies, I have therefore provided not only the Pali equivalents of most of the key words, but also references to the original texts and footnotes, and a selective biography. The difficulties of my task have been manifold. Throughout, I have tried to steer a course between the unfamiliar and the popular, to give the English reader of the present day something which he could understand and appreciate, without sacrificing anything of the matter and the form of the discourses of the Buddha. Well, the tradition has distorted itself, but let's not go further. Writing the book, I've kept the ancient text running in my mind, so I have deliberately kept the synonyms and repetitions which were a part of the Buddha's speech as it has come down to us through oral tradition, in order that the reader should have some notion of the form used by the teacher. I have kept as close as I could to the originals, and I have tried to make my translations easy and readable. But there is a point beyond which it is difficult to take an idea without losing in the interest of simplicity and particular meaning. The Buddha was interested in developing. As the title, What the Buddha Taught, was selected for this book, I felt that it would be wrong to set down the words of the Buddha, even the figures he used, in preference to a rendering which might provide the easy gratification of comprehensibility at the risk of distortion of meaning. I have discussed in this book almost everything which is commonly accepted as the essential and fundamental teachings of the Buddha. These are the doctrines of the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, the Five Aggregates, Karma, Rebirth, Conditioned Genesis, Paticcasamuppada, the Doctrine of No Soul, Anatta, Satipatthana, the setting up of mindfulness, naturally, there will be in the discussion expressions which must be unfamiliar to the Western reader. I would ask him if he is interested to take up on the first reading of the open chapter and then go on to chapters 5, 7, and 8, returning to chapters 2, 3, 4, and 6 when the general sense is clearer and more vivid. It would not be possible to write a book on the teachings of the Buddha without dealing with the subjects which the Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism have accepted as fundamental in his system of thought. The term Theravada, Hinayana, or small vehicle, is no longer used in informed circles. Could be translated as the school of the elders, Theras, and Mahayana as the great vehicle. They are used of the two main forms of Buddhism known in the world today. There's 16, is there 16 or 18 proper ones? I think 16. Theravada, which is regarded as the original Orthodox Buddhism, is followed in Ceylon, Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, is that how you say that? And Chittagong in East Pakistan. Mahayana, which developed relatively later, is followed by other Buddhist countries like China, Japan, Tibet, Mongolia, etc. It's interesting to find that populations that had Buddhism, people accepted Islam at a higher rate in some of those areas, like in Pakistan. Well, they accepted under Sufis, the Chishti and such orders. There are certain differences, mainly with regard to some beliefs, practices, observance, between these two schools. On the most important teaching of the Buddha, such as those discussed here, Theravada, Mahayana, are unanimously agreed. It only remains for now to express my sense of gratitude to Professor E.F.C. Ludwig, who in fact invited me to write this book, for all the help given me, the interest taken in, and the suggestions he offered him for reading through the manuscript, to Miss Marianne Mohan too, who went through the manuscript and made valuable suggestions. I am deeply grateful. Finally, I am greatly beholden to Professor Paul de Maville, my teacher in Paris, for his kindness in writing the foreword. And Walpola Rahula, and Tumani Sabadanam Damadanam Janati, the gift of truth excels all other gifts. And so, because I am particularly not, if I was to describe Buddhism as my path, I wouldn't really describe it in a conservative way that would label me as Buddhist, because I can't look at these 16 schools of thought and pick one. The two big ones, some other ones, there's a whole list of something, and I'm hoping this book has it, because I've seen it before. What was it, 16 or 18? But the Buddha Yoga concept and the idea of respecting sages that have gone before, not worshiping, I'm not doing that, it's possible somebody could consider me a Buddhist. So consider this the Buddhist side of myself, although I'm not saying that I have to follow Buddhism as a religion, as people would call it.